So, well, we meet.
Yes, yes. We actually met several years ago when you were interviewing all those non-duality people. You had a session with Muji once, and I think I called in.
Oh, yeah, that was 2009.
Yeah.
I don't know. The last one I did might have been with Muji. That was actually, I think, in May of 2010. But I was really
Uh-huh.
going for it in 2009.
Yes, I know. Every weekend, I used to have I think two different interviews every weekend.
Yeah, I also did some on Wednesday. Sometimes I did two on Wednesday and two on the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, that was when I was really gung ho.
Yeah. Well, I used to listen to all those. I used to enjoy them a lot.
Yeah, of course I did too, and that's what propelled me to do them.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the fact I could do them, the fact that that wasn't that I found it not difficult. And so at
Hmm.
first it was kind of like all new territory, and I used to have two helpers. Uh, then they realized I could do it, so they said, "Why should I travel all these miles to get to his place?"
Well, you left quite a legacy there. I mean, there they are. They're all still there for the listening. For anyone who wants to hear them, right?
Yeah, most of them are. I think I dropped 300 of them,
Oh, uh,
only because they were on Vidler, and Vidler started charging me money.
oh, okay, that makes sense. So here we are.
So we start talking about meeting different areas of our life, right? Something is calling us, calling our attention. We notice something. How do we notice it? I mean, there's a feeling, I guess. Something brings it onto the radar. And then we say, oh, I wonder what's up there. We meet it. What are these areas that we meet? I mean, let's just say a few of them.
Relationships. I see
Fi-
your lips move, but I don't hear a sound.
Financing,
Financing. Health.
health,
Health. Yeah.
our family and our relatives,
Right.
how we accept our own body,
Accept our body. Work and career.
work and career, how we accept our own sexuality,
Yeah. How we accept the world.
how we eat and how we digest, and where we buy
Right.
our food and what our considerations are of nourishment and elimination.
Hmm. Our spirituality. How we perceive that.
So let's look at spirituality. What does it really mean?
Exactly. What does it mean?
In a way, it means meeting the unknown, right, and having a story about it. Because if it's known, then it fits in one of those other categories. But if it's
Right.
something unknown and it's our happiness factor, maybe let's call it, because some satisfaction is there, or some ease in living, or it's a happiness. Can we just call it a happiness factor, or what should we? How should we put a handle on it?
Happiness is good. I like the word ease also. You just mentioned the word ease, our ease of living, rather than dis-ease,
Right.
the
Okay, so that
ease.
brings up like the fear factor. What are we afraid of? And then all brings up all like our neediness, like what are we missing, and what are we inadequate for, and why do we have to say that there's a mystery out there in spirituality, because somehow it seems like we don't really have a handle on certain areas of our life, right? They just happen the way they happen, and so then we make up that. their gifts, or their, karma, or their trials that we are learning from, or what else do we say about those things?
I like the word karma. That's kind of a useful term. Karma, like somehow we cause stuff to happen. Maybe we were bad. Or we messed up. And now we have to pay for it, right? Or maybe we have good karma. Maybe like there's some great stuff happening that we could say, oh, it's because of my past lives.
Oh yeah, well that's nice. But anyhow, let's just look at karma. Karma just means consequences.
Exactly.
So then, whether we say it's bad or good, it just depends on how we feel in the moment, right? Or how much we don't want to hurt, or how much we don't want to cause pain around us, like have other people hurt. And so then karma, I don't know, like karma is an explanation of what seems outside of our control, or it's like outside of our explanation. So we just throw it into this one bundle and say, well, maybe we deserve it.
Yeah. Yes, it could be. I mean, who knows, Who knows, really? I mean, I sure as hell, I don't know what that.
You don't know about karma?
It's a good story, It's a good story. To say, oh, this is karma that's happening to me,
Well, karma, again, I would say karma is one step removed. It's not really, it's kind of like just a mystical, uh, uh, one step removed means like, okay, it's just my last ditch effort to say something so I can be comfortable. But really, what karma means is consequences. And if we could trace those consequences, or really know the mechanism of consequences, then we wouldn't have to have a karma. We could just say, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore because I don't want those consequences, right? I mean, we know that everything has a consequence, or it goes in a certain direction. If we make a certain choice, then we're apt to get a certain result.
Right. I see your lips moving, and now they're not moving.
There's not much sync on this, so then we'll just watch eyes. Don't watch lips.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So yes. So consequences of actions, right?
Well, also consequences of inaction.
Exactly right. That's
almost
right.
equal, right?
Equal, yes, exactly. The things we didn't do are as important.
Or the things we're refusing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
We just say I don't do that anymore. I've gone past that, right? Which might be just get a job, right? For some people, they won't do it, right?
Well, I guess we all have things we resist, that we'd rather not deal with, I think it's called procrastination. Is a good word. We just keep saying, well, I'll get to it next week.
So procrastination is one way to do resistance. It's just a method. Procrastination
Right.
is one method. But in the meantime, let's look at resistance. Maybe that's some area of your life that you want to meet also. And then resistance, in a way, is a refusal, right? Like, I refuse to do that. And so then I make up every kind of a way and every kind of a feeling to feel bad when I get close to it. So then as I get closer and closer, I want to escape, and I go into all kinds of addictive behaviors and whatnot. But what is resistance and what is refusal? Why are we refusing something?
Fear, I guess. I mean, fear is probably the first thing that comes to mind when I think about refusal to act. There's something that says, oh, but maybe it will work out. or maybe there'll be problems.
Well, let's just say that there will be problems, and half the times it won't work out, and half the times it will, right? Because that's the nature of life. We wrote something about that. Gee, I wonder if that's just in a later chapter or if you've already read it. You know, we talked about Gurdjieff, and he says first force, second force, and third force. And first force is a creative idea, and second force is the resistance in the universe. And we just said, hey, look,
Yes.
if there's no resistance, everybody that had an idea would pop into reality right then.
Right.
Impossible
I
to
think
live like that. Impossible to have planet Earth like that. So
Yes.
then resistance is actually our friend. And resistance, it's like being in the water. If there's no resistance, you can't swim because you push against nothing, right? And so there's no way to swim. So what we're doing with resistance is we're learning to swim in it. And resistance is our dear friend. It's not anything about an enemy.
Yes, I recall, and I think it was maybe chapter 2 or 3. I remember reading that. I think I made some notes about it. But there's so many things we resist. I mean, it's hard to be fully aware of all of them all the time. You know, they seem to present, like you said, there's a force that comes against us from life, and either go back towards it with some creative ideas, or we back off from it. You know, try to, like you said, try to cover it up with other activities, addictions, behaviors, whatever. I mean, there's not that many choices when it comes to how we're going to deal with that force, right?
Oh, I think there's a lot of choices. But okay, so first of all, we said creative ideas, and second of all, we said back off. And so back off is another kind of an idea, which is like a predecision that says, hey, we don't face that anymore, or that's just too painful. Or, I mean, I just can't get a new idea, and why should I just keep going the same thing and it never results, right? That must be a force I can't meet, or I have no options with that force, whatever that is. And so then we want to skip out on that. But so then those are two kinds of what is the creative idea, and then what's the nature of the old idea that says that's for forbidden zone, no fly zone, don't go there. What are those two different ideas? Why are they different? What is creativity, and what is this other thing that just says avoid, avoid?
I guess one could be a contraction, like a tightening. Like you just kind of contract and tighten around a force coming at you, like some action that's required of you that you don't want to do. And then the other, maybe creative ideas are an expansion. You just kind of open up and allow, well, I could do it this way. You know, I haven't tried this before. Maybe I'll try this. You know, maybe I'll see if that works.
Okay, let's talk a second about our premise of the experiment. You know, and a premise, and we're experimenting with this premise. We're not saying it's true, and we don't know. You know, but our premise is that your contraction and your expansion, which is less contraction, you know, it's not really different from contraction. It's just like letting off of it a little, and we interpret that as expansion. So it's the same thing, right? So we're saying that those all come from your words, what you say about things. And so then, if you're saying about a resistance or a second force that, hey, there's no way, I have no options here. I've tried it, I know. Just get out of here. Okay, well that's a contraction, right? But it's the words that made the contraction, not the event. And then those that say I have a creative idea, well, somehow they've met that contraction. That's what we talked about in the very beginning. I said there's lots of areas of life that we're talking about meeting, and then we started listing all these areas of life. And then later I want to say, well, what is meeting, right? Okay, so then this is a little hint to it, because like then second force is what is kind of like holding us down from what we wish, right? Or what, and you're saying that a creative idea is an expansion, but I'm saying that someone that can meet that contraction from the first realization that this thing is blocking me. Whoa, you know. Then there's a contraction from those words, and then someone that sits there and meets that and says, "Well, I wonder," you know. And then someone who's doing the experiment and says, "Well, you don't have to say gap and all that stuff, but you just realize that you take a pause basically and say, well, what are the options here?" And then I don't know, maybe you talk to other people, or maybe uh, somehow it opens that there could. Let's just give it a try. We'll do something, right? And so then that's the expansion by the experiment. The experiment is saying that the words are, and so then that's what experiment is all about, is choosing words and more friendly to yourself and all these kind of things. Watch the contraction, which is the open space, right? That's kind of like these are real ripe grounds for experimenting, right?
They are.
Is that clear?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's clear. I think I was listening to you recently, and you were talking about, maybe it was with Anne, and the word yearning came up. And I've been thinking about that word yearning. I'm not to get off the subject because we're still on this.
No. Yearning is totally on subject. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I'd like to say something about that because I've had some shifts in that regard. I think just from reading the PDFs and reading posts, I didn't actually do anything, but I noticed something shifted. And I think I made a post about online dating, which you might recall. I talked about.
No, I totally recall it, and I told you to go back at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've kind of repunked that, and I had this shift about it because I realized earlier in the year I was doing this desperate kind of searching. I have to find a woman. I was lonely. And so I started this online dating, and I had a moderate success with meeting people, but I was never particularly happy with the meetings. I'd meet women, we'd go to Starbucks and have a cup of coffee and talk for an hour, and that would be the end of it. There was no follow through. I didn't particularly feel motivated, but the underlying feeling was of yearning. It's like I really want to meet a woman, and it was on and on, and I was suffering. I could feel, this is a distortion. There's something not right about this. And in the past 2 months, I've noticed that whatever that feeling of yearning, that kind of lack, that sense of lack or wanting that yearning seems to invoke, kind of went away. It just began to disappear, and I began to become much more peaceful. Is that the right word? Maybe calm, less perturbed, as that kind of faded away. So I'm just bringing that up because it just seems like an interesting shift for me personally to observe how yearning. I saw yearning as a way of suffering, actually. It's kind of a suffering, because it never seems to get fulfilled. I would meet women and think, no, she's not the one. No, she's not the one. And that's an insane place.
Well, I think I said in that post to you that if you're meeting people for a reason, then your judgment machine is on. And if you're judging people to see if they fulfill your reason, it's not that fun to judge people.
No.
especially because they're, when you judge them that they don't feel the bill, you have to reject them. So then it's not that fun to reject people. And then the fact that you're already doing that whole thing for this purpose of being mated,
Mm-hmm.
the judgment machine is on.
Exactly.
You know, like what you referred to with Anne, that was very central to the whole talk. Uh, because what I was telling her was that yearning, all outside in, is yearning, produces yearning. And then we can't really get out of outside in, we swim in a sea of it. But we can hold it lightly. And so then that yearning we don't take seriously, right? Because whenever there's a standard, or if I tell you anything, if I tell you a spiritual truth, if I tell you a story of my awakening, or anything I tell you is a standard that right away you're going to say, oh, that's not happening for me yet, but maybe it could. So then that creates time right there and a destination that I'm going to work towards something, right? And that's the yearning. And I was telling Anne that there's a place of no yearning. And that place is just where you're taking lightly outside in all the principles that people have gifted you, that society has gifted you, that cultural, the collective consciousness has gifted you. You know, you're not at fault. You just grew up in an ocean of this kind of water, you know, tainted water, right? Of outside in principles. And it creates a million kinds of yearnings, and also yearning not to do things, to avoid things. There are yearnings to go toward things, and yearning to stay away from things. And so then she got that right away. If you noticed, she just kind of went to silence. And I said, okay, look, that's the gap, right? It's just the absence of yearning. We call it the gap, but don't make anything out of it. It's just the easiest thing in the world. Because when you realize that principles, you know, are not yours, so that you can just kind of have a light touch to them, yearning uh, just dries up, and you're in presence right now. And I was telling her that you can do that at any time. There's no, there's no process to it. There's no meditation technique. There's no quieting the mind. There's no getting around the right people that have the good vibration. There's no sinking in or receptivity, or you know, all of that stuff has it works. It does something. There's an effect to it. But what I was saying was that the creative field is here right now, and she went right to it. And then we started discussing an issue or something, right? And so then I want you to know that too, that yearning uh, is just, well, just take a look at it and see if it's true for you.
Yes, it is true for me. Yeah, it is true for me. And it seemed to happen, as I said, that just kind of the energy of that yearning began to leave by itself. It wasn't like, oh, I need to get rid of yearning. There was no debate about it, you know, on the inner part of me. I didn't feel any outside in influence about it. Perhaps, though, reading your PDFs and listening to some of the hangouts, some of that came in, you know, that information. But yes, it just seems to be that when it leaves, there is a gap. There's like a big, just gap, open space of good feeling, actually. You know, when the yearning energy goes away, you know, it feels pretty good, actually. You know?
So that's a ground, you know, that's kind of like a ground where you can meet those areas of your life. How we started this conversation, we were talking about meeting the parts of life that are calling you. And that no yearning space is a ground where you can really meet. If you're in a yearning space, then you only can meet it in a certain way. You know, you have a resistance because you don't want to meet it in some other way. You have a refusal. Some things you just don't want, you know, whether they have to do with things in your own life or whether they have to do with things that other people in your life. You know, I don't want to meet that person like they are, you know, or I don't want those kind of people around me, or you know, I don't want to live in that city, or
Mm-hmm.
mostly you say I don't want to live in this city because that city you're already not living in, so who cares about that, you know? But if you're rejecting your own place, that's important, and that affects how you live. You know, if you have a kind of a take on things aren't going so well around here, the traffic's bad, the pollution's bad, you know, the cost of living's too high, the taxes are outrageous. You've got a million judgments about where you live, and you know those are yearnings that prevent you from meeting it.
That's true. Well, like you said, we're bombarded, moment by moment in this world. You know, you turn the TV on and it's like an endless confrontation with, ways to make you yearn. You know, like 1,000 different products get thrown at you every day, and stories on shows that make you yearn a particular outcome. And that's been going on since we were little children, right? I mean, it's just.
Well, it really doesn't matter about how long it's been going on. All that matters is that it's going on now, right? Because all that other stuff is only a memory. And then, the more we dwell in memories, the more important that memory is. But if we stop dwelling in memory, at least, I mean, we have memories, but we don't really, again, we hold them lightly, right? And then who cares what they're putting on television? Because you can go and turn on television and get a whole diet of yearning and people trying to sell stuff. And you can also walk over there and turn it off. Right? Exactly. So then you're totally empowered, right? In the now. There's nothing that can get you, right?
Well, you can use the mute button too. You know, you can be watching a show and just every time the yearning machine comes on, you just click the mute button, you know?
Right on. But I don't know, I'll bet you all those shows have yearning built into them, you know, no matter what they are. Movies and everything has kind of like they're all moral statements, and any kind of movie is a injustice machine because they're trying to tickle your what do you call it, your emotions, and the more they can jam your emotion without being too overt, about it, you think, oh my God, that's real life or something. You can get entertained, I guess. But anyhow, I kind of resent that and resist it. I'm real good at turning it off.
So, do you have movies and stuff where you live there in Thailand? Have all those theaters and things like that?
Yeah, there are theaters, and there's the new movies, and they're in English, and then they got the fancy special effects graphic ones, and then they put those in 3D and stuff. I saw my first 3D. I didn't really think much of it, but anyhow. They got those, and I used to live with somebody that liked movies, so we'd go see one every once in a while. And I don't know, they cost, it's kind of a Western price, you know. They're in a Western mall, and at least the big theaters, and they must be something like $12, I guess.
It's about the same as here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, So let's go back to your PDFs, which I've been enjoying a lot. I think we just got number 8 a couple of days ago. I haven't read it yet. I read the first one.
Yeah, it's not that much different, but I just wanted you to review it.
Okay. I'm going to look at that later, and I usually just take notes. As I said before, sometimes I stand up and read them aloud to myself because somehow that seems to penetrate a little better, maybe.
Hey, try this now, just for the heck of it, you know. I mean, not for me or anything like that, but if you're going to stand up and read them aloud, why don't you just, do you have a recording, video recording element on your computer? Just record them and then play yourself back. You know, that could be really great just to watch yourself and to listen to your own voice, not only just to listen to my content, right? And
just have a little hand recorder, little tiny digital recorder, which I could do that with also.
I think you'd have fun with it. And then listen to it like that, you know, and watch yourself.
Well, you know, I had
just
a
a
thought.
idea that popped in my head. I mean, it was not part of anything that I ever thought of before.
But you know, I had a thought. I don't know if you've thought about this. That it might be interesting to hear you actually read the chapter as a video, just a single video. You know, so that again, it's just seeing you and hearing your words coming directly from you than on a printed, rather than a printed page on a screen, might have a different effect, you know.
Okay, I accept that suggestion. I will do one chapter. I have read some other people's stuff online when I couldn't get them, and I was kind of interested to have people know it, and I didn't feel like transcribing the whole thing, and so then I will do that. Thank you.
Well, it's just an idea, you know. It's just an idea because I think we started out with, what, 16 people, and I listened to your interview with Mikhail and Anita, and you were expressing some disappointment about people not showing up, you know, and which I can totally understand. I mean, that's why would they not show up? I mean, you know, it's not like you're charging, you know, $100 a session or something. You know, you're offering something of great value, at least as I see it, that people should be, you know, willing to show up for it. You know.
Well, you know, we're talking about areas of your life, right? And meeting them. And one area of your life that we could meet is how we meet people, right? And then people don't know how to meet people. In fact, our thoughts are that we should be avoiding people, you know, because I have a whole big take on this. I could write a whole chapter on it, actually. That the Western society values the individual. Well, what is the individual? The individual is a set of boundaries. And boundaries, what are boundaries? Boundaries are lines that we say, hey, only a very select few can cross these. So the Western society is all built on holding, you know, withhold. I don't know about the Eastern society or any other society because I haven't been in that many. I've been in Europe and now I'm in Thailand, Asia. And, you know, it could have similarities. But I mean, I do know that we glorify the individual in a way that they don't really glorify. They glorify the family here. And so then somewhere else, maybe in communist China, back in the days of Mao, they would glorify the state. Right? And so then we're a withhold society, and we're all about how private we can be. And that's a robotic action, right? That's just a societal, cultural, collective consciousness that we're now in. You know, we're exclusive. And that's one reason why you don't meet women and none of us are sexually satisfied. We don't even know what it means because we're all about holding ourselves away from the other. And so then that's a robotic action that when we realize, we can say, well, I don't choose to do that, you know, or I'll choose to face it or meet it, how I meet people, whether I hold up my barriers or whether I let them down. You know, and the way you hold up barriers and let them down is when you think someone wants something from you. If they want something from you, you're going to hold up your barriers higher and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to give that. And then if they don't want anything from you, like maybe you and me right now, I don't want anything from you, you don't want anything from me, I feel like I don't have any barriers. And, or maybe even when somebody does want something from you, you'll just say, so what, I'm just going to leave my barriers down. And whatever they are, you know, I mean, it's not all that conscious, where you could just know that I'm lifting the fence and now I'm lowering the fence. But I mean, somehow just having that intention. And so then how do we meet ourselves the way we meet? And I don't believe that people know how to meet. They don't have a clue. In fact, their whole wiring is like how not to meet, How can I hold myself away? And that's where these people are living, right? And a lot of it's done with priorities. They say, "Oh, my life is a mess. I got to handle this first, then I can meet."
Yeah, well, maybe it's a kind of a robotic protection that's kind of been built into us. It's kind of a subliminal, like, if I just stay open and meet people head on, boy, that would be very safe because I have no idea who these people are. You know, I could get badly hurt by just opening myself up to something like that I don't even know. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, the truth is, if you kind of look at when you've really been close to someone, these people are nobody. These people are a potential to be aware of you, and a potential to be aware of themselves, and that's all they are really. There's no essence. There's no entity there. There's just a potential to, and so then you're nobody, right? So meet nobody in yourself too.
well, I'm sure people wouldn't be too happy to hear that.
Well, they
Because
would
everybody,
actually. It's all about
everybody's
non-duality. It's all the non-duality spiel, right?
well. That's yeah. Well, you and I know what that's about. But I'm not sure if you stop the average person on Fifth Avenue in New York, they'd be too happy to say, you know what, you're nobody and nothing. There's nothing here. It's just this idea you have.
Don't
I
tell them
think
that, but that's the highest honor we pay them is not characterization. We don't characterize people. I mean, I'm not saying we, but I mean, like, okay, let's say that we want to give someone the highest honor. We just see them as a marvelous being. That's all, right? And we see their contractions and we see their roboticness and stuff like that. But then it's just a marvelous. It's just totally marvelous, and it's awe-inspiring and love-inspiring, right? And that's the highest gift we can give people. If we characterize people and know people and say, "Oh, you're this way," and I know that you're sensitive, and I have to be careful about this and that, and I can't talk. I know you're a Republican, so I can't talk about any liberal policy, and I know you're a Christian Baptist, so I can't talk about karma. And I don't know, that's all that you put all the limitations on them and say, okay, like I'll hold you where you want to be, I'll hold you in those limitations, just like you've presented yourself. No, no. When you go to the guru, he sees you as an open space. It's like a hollow flute, a hollow bamboo that God is blowing.
yes. Well, I think what you're talking about is the way we tend to place people in hierarchies in our society. We have people who are uh, higher up, in our estimation. We've been brainwashed to think of, well, a guru is better than, every other people because they're enlightened. They've been sitting in a cave for 20 years. Clearly, they're in a much more enlightened space than most of us. So we put them in a different place, right? We tend to have a hierarchy of the spiritually awakened, the not spiritually awakened, the ignorant, And what you're saying is there's no difference at all. We're all equally in the same space.
I'm just saying it with a flash. In just a flash, you can dismantle that whole hierarchy, and you can have it back in another flash, right? And it's okay too. Maybe it's practical, but I mean, if you want to really honor someone, then you'll dismantle the hierarchy around that person for that moment.
Well, you've had a lot of training at that because I saw you interview so many people who were one could be awed by them. A lot of the people you interviewed in your non-duality interviews, you know, you could have easily been awed, but I never really saw you being awed like that. You just seem to meet them head on. In fact, I was watching your interview with Chakra. How do you say it? Chakrananda? Is that his name?
Yeah, Shankarananda.
Shankarananda from Melbourne. Yes, I watched that last week. Relative to the Shiva process, I thought I'd watch that interview because he's the guy.
He's
right?
the guy, right?
The guy, and I was noticing, you just interviewed him without that sense of hierarchy. It was just him and you. Just didn't seem to be boundaries there, which I really enjoyed. It was just a very open, two guys chatting, which I think was really was nice. It was an enjoyable interview.
I called him on a couple of things that he really couldn't answer, And one of them, I told him that what he's promoting and the people around him are looking for a discontinuity in their life. They want to jump, right? And why are they? What's wrong with this life that you have to jump out of it, jump out of your skin? And why can't things just be a gradual opening and seeing? And why is the whole Enlightenment story is about a discontinuity? Something has to crash. There's the two schools. One school is everything crashes around you, and you have the dark night of the soul. And the other school is somehow that you wake up and enlightened and in bliss. And I said, what is it that you're promoting that people should be uncomfortable in their own skin? And he was baffled by that, He said, oh my God, yeah, why? But he didn't really follow up on it.
Yeah, well, maybe they're trying to jump back into their skin as well. Maybe they've been out of their skin for a long time.
But that's a theory.
That's a theory, yeah.
That's a theory, because like their skin is right here now, I mean, why not just jump into your life and say no? But they're defining their now as not their skin, right? And all their anxieties and stuff, they're denying, right? And saying, I'm going to separate from that. And they even say that the mind is illusion. So they're separating that out, as a human being. They're saying that, okay, well, we're our essence. So then they've never touched the essence without the mind, right? But they're still there, willing to deny their mind and say that, oh, well, it's too flexible for me. It goes this way, and then later it goes that way. And so I want something that's rock solid. There's got to be an essence there somewhere. And then they're doing all this wiggling and saying that if I get to that essence, we'll be back in my skin. That is such a load. I don't go for that. That is so abstract. And of course, every thought has a feeling, right? And then let's say there's a contraction level in this life here on planet Earth, in my house, at my address. There's a reaction level, and there's kind of like a hold which is my base contraction level, right? And I'm saying, why can't I get out of that? And once I was out of it, because I was in this Never Never Land, I took acid, or I was on a trip, or a guru kind of took me through a guided meditation, or whatever it was. Somehow I disconnected from all this hold. And now I'm going to say that's my true skin. But my true skin is my hold, my base hold. Let's meet it. We're talking about, when we started this discussion, we said there's areas in your life that we want to meet. We haven't said what meeting is yet, and I intend to say that, or I intend to ask you about it. Maybe we should just go to that instead of talking about Shankarananda or spiritual people or other ways of doing things. We should just talk about our way of doing it, which is meeting what's here and what appears right now and not denying this thing. Anytime somebody's going for a yearning, I just point out to them that what you're yearning for is a theory, a concept, and what you're yearning away from is what's real to you. Like, you don't need any ideas to have this hold, this base hold, this mood, these things that appear to work and these things that appear not to work. You don't need an idea for that. They're all here. They're here now, and they just show up daily in your life. And maybe you're just stuffed with it, you're just tired of it, and say fed up, and you want to jump into some kind of a holiness, right? But all that holiness is not here. It's just a concept, and somebody gifted you it. It's outside in, and all of it is a judgment point on yourself. and all of it gives you a resistance to what you have in your life right now, and gives you a yearning. And then you try to get back to no yearning by having a yearning. It's really hilarious.
It is hilarious. It is. So let's get back to this word meeting each other, meeting. So in the context of that, what we just said, what does meeting mean?
Well, meeting all the areas of your life too, not just meeting each other, meeting yourself, meeting whether your car starts or not, meeting whether you think you need a new car, if your garage roof leaks, meeting everything, just meeting your utility bill, meeting the fact that you don't want to call insurance companies, everything that you're going to meet, all these things, meeting your relatives, meeting a potential girlfriend. How do you do it? Where do you meet them? What's the ground? Okay, let's first say, where's the ground of meeting?
Well, I think we touched on that a bit earlier. We said the gap is a good ground of being, that empty space, of open space of good feeling, where you just kind of meet from that place, without expectations of the other. Because if we have expectations, then obviously there has to be judgments, because if they don't meet the expectation, then there's going to be judgment, right?
Well, I mean, the two things that go hand in hand are expectations and disappointment.
Exactly. That's right. And yearning creates the expectation. Maybe this will be the one. Maybe she'll be the one, or he'll be the one, or it will be the one. The thing that the yearning is about.
Well, actually, it's the expectation that creates the yearning. Because, like, if you think that something could be different than it is now, then you might say, I wish I was over there. First you have to have the idea that something could be different, right? Especially in my life. You can see other people are different, and they got their own problems in their own life and their own challenges, right? And then this is me, though. This is where my reality is, and this is my perception of it. And a big chunk of that perception, yeah, granted, we say that many times, is our interpretation. And there's really no way to tease that out and figure out, well, what percentage is my interpretation and what percent is real. And for so long in our life, we've just said it's all real, and that my interpretation is just my good attempt of describing what's real. And so then, from that ground, we can't really change our story, because we're believing that, oh no, this story is real, and this is what's happening. Maybe I can change it just a little, but not much. So then when we start I start drilling into you guys that there's no way to really know what part of life is your interpretation and what part of it is so-called real, right? In fact, for the experiment purposes, we're saying that it's all interpretation, or that it's so much interpretation that change your interpretation. So then that's what allows the experiment, As long as we believe that we're an effect of a whole lot of real stuff out there, there's really no experiment. We just have to accept the onslaught, right? We have to somehow make ourselves adequate to all that force out there. So the ground of meeting, okay, the gap is somehow to clear away the old ground, and to allow a new ground. But the real ground of meeting is our self-talk, what we're saying about everything in our life. Are we grumbling about the roof is leaking? I mean, Anne lost her car. Is she grumbling that someone stole her car? Well, she shifted a little bit. She started to, I needed a new car anyhow. Thanks for taking it away. But, it's a self-talk, and that's where she met the theft of her car, in her self-talk. And I believe that we meet everything in our life, I'm calling it through a verbal doorway. And that's the ground, the meeting ground that I'm going to point to now. Now, it could, what is the value of the gap? The gap is a way to get into a new doorway and get out of that old doorway. But in the end, a new doorway will come. You're not going to stay in the gap all the time. That's another teaching that says, stay with the I am, stay in no mind, right? And that's all creative. No mind's not creative, and no mind just allows you to be in a fresh mind. When you go to no mind, then you can see another choice and then choose a fresh mind. Mind is the only thing that's creative. And so then I'm suggesting that meeting, I'm making up a new thing. There's no chapter on it or nothing. But I did say something about a doorway in chapter 12. But a doorway is like our description of what we perceive, our self-talk about it. Now that doorway is either wide or narrow. And with the narrow context in the old stories, it's narrow, and as we grumble and complain, it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And so then, what can flow through that doorway in that area of our life is pinched, and very little. And if we just keep that doorway open by having a positive opening, good feeling, self-talk about where I live, the city I'm in, my housing, my relationships, my family, and all those areas that we said, my health, the care. I have no healthcare insurance, but actually in Thailand they've got world-class hospitals, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. I just as soon pay for it, but I don't need it, right? So I mean, what do you think about that? That the meeting ground is your self-talk.
I would say that's right on. Yeah, I would say that's right on. It's easy to see, as when you just kind of watch yourself interacting through the day. Whether it's with someone at Starbucks when you're in the coffee, or the guy at the gym that says hello, or family or relative. Yeah, it's really about the dialogue that goes on. I think there was a wonderful term once that I used to go to a Buddhist class in New York, and they used the word mental continuum as an expression. Mental continuum. It's that endless, or seemingly endless dialogue that we spend our entire waking time in, from the minute we wake up, and probably when we're asleep too. There's this mental continuum. It just goes on and on and on. And how are we to not judge it? How are we to edit?
Let me make a short comment on that, and then you go back at it.
Okay.
Okay, they're saying mental continuum with disdain, the Buddhists. I say mental continuum as reality. That is our reality, and I honor it, completely honor it. And I say that that's where our choice lies, and that we have choice once we start looking at our mental continuum. It's our grumbling or our complaining or our reinforcing our joy. We reinforce it moment by moment by moment by telling a good story about all the different areas of our. And I'll share this about myself, go a little farther into it, that right now I have a good story about everything I can think of. And so I have no issues. So then what do I do? Like I say, okay, just keep saying a good story and keep the door. I use the doorway metaphor, that I'm opening the doors wider and wider and wider on every part of my life, right? And I'm really open to choice, because in a minute I can say, buy a bigger motor scooter, go start traveling, do this, do that, boom. I change gears, right? Because, anyhow. So then I don't really have these issues, but then what's left, Life has to open up deeper, right? And I realized last night, I was talking to Mikhail, and we realized, both of us, that life is going to open up in a whole different way, because all the issues are gone, and they're all gone because because what we do in the experiment is we learn to watch our words, and we learn about restoring and about the arbitrariness of interpretation, and that we can be more friendly to ourselves. And so then that watching allows me to stand by the doorway of every area of my life and make sure that it's not closing. I wouldn't close it for nothing. I wouldn't complain about anything. and then I just watch my story. But I mean, is that all there is to life? So then I just realized yesterday actually that something is cooking really big, you know, or like another layer of change or something else. I don't know what. But so then that's where I am. I stand by those doorways and I keep them open. I'm the door guard, you know. Ganesh is the door guard, right?
Right. Well, now it wasn't always the case that you felt like this, right? I mean, you're there now. Is it where there was that an evolution into this? I mean, there were times when you didn't feel that way. Is that correct?
I'm just like you. I'm totally just like you. You know, I'm in this experiment and I'm just opening like a flower, right? it's not that I'm arrived and I'm giving out this experiment to you. I'm in it for myself, and it's just totally changing me and experimenting with me, and you know, everything. It could be yesterday that I figured these out. You know, not 30 years ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm in the same free fall as you are.
Well, that's great.
That's the only way it can really work between us.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. I have no idea where it's going either. I mean, each day is like it unfolds. I love what you said. You were talking to Anne, I think it was in the hangout with Mikhail and Anita. You said, I sleep 9 or 10 hours a night now. Or I have nowhere to go, nothing to do, and it's all fine. You know? Well, that's a completely new space for me because I was a very driven, you know, American dream chaser for a long, long time, you know, and so now my career kind of faded away with the economy, which is okay. I have what I need, but it's the years and years and decades of driving, that I have to get up and do stuff, more stuff, work hard. And now I don't have to do that anymore. And it's like you said, it's kind of a free fall. It's like, I don't know this place. I'm not familiar with this place at all. This wide open, wake up in the morning and just kind of allow things to evolve without forcing anything, Like yesterday, I was just walking around my house and I noticed the gutters were full of leaves from the fall trees. I hadn't noticed them before, and I thought, oh, I'll go up and clean them out. So that's what happened for the next 2 hours. There was no plan. It's just that's what needs to be done right now. Or maybe tomorrow, but it's cool now, because I'm into it. And it was very enjoyable. It wasn't like, oh, this is a big chore that has to be done. It's like, this is cool. I'm up on a ladder by the roof of my house, scooping out all these leaves. It was a cool thing to be doing. And then it was done. And now I can look up and say, wow, the leaves are gone. And now when it rains, the rain will be able to run all freely. That kind of thing, it's just kind of something to do, it even feels creative to do something like that. It's not art, it's not much value to the world.
It's a lot of value because when the water blocks up and then the winter comes and then you get gutters full of ice and then they get heavy and they fall off and then you got to glue them back up there next spring, right? And the whole house is falling apart. I mean, it's a huge plus. The only thing I caution is if you're on the second story, don't go up a high ladder. You and I are too old for ladders. Hire a guy.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't have a second story. No, it's not that high. Yeah. Small house, thankfully. But but that's the kind of thing, it's just that's what presents, and tomorrow something else will present. Maybe I need to go shopping for vegetables. You know, it's just, but it's a new space for me.
How do you like my definition of meeting?
I like it. I like it. I like the idea of, being in the gap and the open space of good feeling and just coming from that place. Because it's kind of, there's not all this stuff about expectations and what you are hoping to achieve with this person or impress them with your brilliance or whatever. It's just being open. It's kind of like when I was a jazz bass player, that space existed all the time. That's where you met when you went on stage with 4 or 5 other musicians. It was kind of like that. You just kind of, okay, we're all here and we're going to make stuff happen, and whatever happens is fine. It's that kind of, it's a really nice space.
How do you like my explanation of a verbal doorway?
I like it a lot. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Because we're saying monitor our self-talk, and so then I'm saying that when your self-talk is an open space of good feeling, producing open space of good feeling, because it's an opening self-talk, then more of life will flow through that open space. Then if we have a contracting self-talk that gives us a closed feeling. So then I'm suggesting that that's a doorway to letting life in. And then I'm suggesting in every area of your life, there is a doorway, because we're grumbling or we're praising each different part of our life in a different way. And that we can stand by that doorway, and because we're learning to listen to our own self-talk. No matter what's happening in our life, we can say, okay, well, what am I saying about this? And then say, no, I don't choose to say that, grumble more about this or complain about this. And then anything that is happening, there's good parts and bad parts, right? You just focus on what opens you, because our experiment is to see what happens if we are more in the open space of good feeling, or we're doing more releasing than we are doing contracting. And so then we're saying that in every area of your life, that when you're meeting it, if you're opening the doorway, more of that will flow in a smooth way. Until finally, you can't even think of a part of a life that's contracting for you, and then you're really standing in the mystery, because something else is going to happen, and who knows what it is. That's really the mystery. You might end up in Thailand, right?
It's not out of the question. Yeah. But I guess the other side of that perspective is that it's always been like that. It's always been like that. There's never a time when it's not been like that. It's just that the door was not open. The door was shut tight. But that's been going on the whole time, right? I mean, you can look back over your life and say, yeah, that's been going on the whole time. I was not available to it, which is a whole different thing. So what you're saying is like, open the door, watch the self-talk, and even including the crappy self-talk. I don't want to do that. I don't like those people. I don't like that. That's all included, right? You can't edit everything out, because it's all.
Well, I mean, that's the first step, is to see it, and then we're saying there's choice, right? I mean, we're going to go into it more of like, what is the temptation structure to have a thought, and why do I always choose the same type of thoughts, and what is actually time? How come I know that time is only a thought, but still it keeps coming, that patterns are fixed? Why do I always have these patterns if time is just a thought? And then we're going to look at a lot of different things. But I'm just suggesting that, yeah, you can see that you're closed, but you don't have to run it. That's where we're going with the experiment in chapter 8, 9, and 10. We're saying you don't have to run anything. And you see it, and then we're trying to find the mechanism of it so that we can say, like, what's the alternative that's more friendly to yourself, that opens the open space of good feeling instead of closes it a little. And what would happen if your life is always a little bit more open than it was yesterday, right? Because you're practicing this experiment.
Well, a good example of kind of thing is addictive behavior is a very good way of testing the choice, because I've had times in my life when I drank too much and I got help and stopped doing that, and then years later I started again. And I know that it's not a particularly good thing for me to do. And so it's interesting to watch the mind present, oh, I think I'm going to go buy a bottle of wine. And then to watch as the choice comes in and say, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And then just keep going. And watch what's going on when you make that choice. And it could be with any addiction, any kind of thing, you know. Just to watch the choice and consciously say, no, I'm not going to do that. And not allow it to build up into this huge, painful resistance. Just kind of let it go immediately in a split second. That's what I see as the doorway. That's the door. That takes you somewhere else altogether, you know, as opposed to going and getting the bottle of wine, which is a whole different choice, you know. But it could apply to anything, any habit, you know, anything you, like we were talking earlier about places you go to avoid dealing with stuff. You know, I'm not going to make the phone call. I'm going to go and eat 2 Big Macs, you know, instead. You know, whatever it is. So, yeah, it's just a way to rate what you're talking about, I think. You know, addiction is a particularly useful tool to watch your own reactions to your own addictive things, you know.
Let's say what addiction is.
Oh, I'd say it's resorting to a comfortable, safe space. At least it's perceived to be a way to avoid feeling something, you know, to bury a feeling. Maybe you're having a really deep sense of sadness, and instead of actually feeling that or even crying, which is okay, you act out in some way. You go shopping, have some sexual escapade, get drunk, stoned, whatever, you know, some way to avoid that sadness, you know.
You might even laugh it off.
You might even laugh it off.
But we never really speak of the addiction of laughing, right? But still, it's a way to avoid the pain, right?
Well, I suppose, yeah, it could be. Although most of us, I think, look at laughter as an outcome of joy, right?
Well, I mean, so much of laughter is from, you know, humor is not joyful. It's really, what are the words? You know, it's like if there's a sharp, you know, comics are really sharp and they're really jabbing people hard, actually. It's not really fun. So, how are you? I mean, is this experiment making any difference in your life?
It is, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Uh, I'd like to participate some more, and, you know, I'm I will. I have been participating. I've made, I think, 3 or 4 posts in the last week or so on different places on the forum. I commented to Anita about some things, and also to Mikhail. We did a video actually.
It's up there now.
Oh, good. And I tend to read chapter 8 again because you edited that somewhat.
Just a little bit, but anyhow, it'll be good to review.
Yeah.
Look, what I really would like with you is I would like you to start to say what's different in your life and start to acknowledge it and acknowledge your shifts.
Okay.
Even if they're small. And there's actually a thread about that says what I've realized, or I forget what it's called, but it says something what I've become aware of.
Right. No, I'll post about the shift I had about yearning, because I think that's something that people can relate to.
Right. But I want those shifts to be strong for you, see, because it's so easy to just say, well, everything's the same and nothing's really changed. And until we start to acknowledge, it doesn't. Well, anyhow, the acknowledging process makes it more real for ourselves. And so instead of saying like how perplexing or what a conundrum the world is, which is kind of the way we started, right? I was saying this doesn't work, that doesn't work, it doesn't feel that good when I say that. And everybody was jumping on the bandwagon and saying, yeah, my life, this but doesn't work, that doesn't work, oh, this thing broke down. And so we're all about bad feeling and closing, really. I mean, we're trying to open, but the result of what we're saying, our words, is closing. So I want people, there's a certain turnaround when we start to say, it's time to acknowledge what is working and focus more on what is working. And now we're going to talk about chapter 8, 9, and 10. We're going to talk about how the process works. And it's, first we break it down and we say that, you can have a gap and you can make a pause and you can see some choices and you don't move on the first thing. You can have some restraint where you don't just jump. And then you realize, oh, whoa, I could do it another way too. And then I just presented this whole thing about a verbal doorway. We can stand by the doors of the different areas of our life, and we can call that how we meet, and then all our actions really come out of how we feel. And so then if that feeling is open space, a good feeling about every part of our lives, then our actions are going to be more balanced, let's say. They're going to be more choice because we're not going to just jump on the old. So then we're going to get away from saying, oh, yeah, well, the only trouble is for 30 years I've been in this deep, deep groove. And we're going to say, really, that who cares about 30 years? Just stop recreating it today. And so we want to take some really big shifts in this experiment. And that's kind of like on we want to remain open and get more and more open and realize that it's just the easiest thing and a total joy, and that the space of no yearning is just completely simple. And whether you want to call it presence or gap or all that, when you give it a name like gap, then it sounds like a job, where am I going to find this damn gap? But if you just say no yearning, and how you do it is like hold principles lightly, it becomes the easiest thing in the world, I want this thing to be easy. Easy. No effort, no sequence, no extra jobs, no being aware, no forcing yourself on anything. It's just that your main interest, what are your interests? Your main interest is to see, what am I saying about this? What am I saying about that? Because it's key. And, find out for yourself that it's key. Don't believe me.
Well, it might be helpful to define, when you said areas of your life, it might be helpful to define maybe a dozen areas and say, okay, here's 12 areas. Because it seems that our energy around different areas of our life is different. In other words, you might have a terrific thing going on with relationship, right? Just a wide open space of good feeling on relationship, but maybe your career is in the toilet. I mean, assuming you actually want to have a career. I'm not saying it's necessary. I'm just using an example. So maybe there's like a dozen different areas that are key to pretty much everybody. Everyone has the same set of definitions, you know, relationship, work, health, finance, career, you know, a list of things. Because the energy people have is different on those things, you know. I mean, it would be ideal to say, well, just approach everything with the open space of good feeling, just everything. Don't define anything. Just approach everything that way, you know. I mean, that would be.
Okay, now look, when we say that, and we're saying that, when we say to approach everything with the open space of good feeling, well, that's outside in. See? And we want you to feel it. So then when we start to define all the different areas of your life, then each one of those you have a different feeling about. It depends on how much you refuse. Your refusal level on that area of your life, right? I'm just calling it refuse. I could call it rejection or resistance and all that stuff. But let's just get right to it and say, you refuse. I friggin' refuse. I ain't going there. And we did that. You know, we said 20 of them in the beginning. You know, when we post this video, we can start to transcribe some of it or make that list, right? And we can add to that list. That could be on this thread. We can everyone can add more and more to the list, and we'll get all the different areas, right? And then we'll talk about the verbal doorway for every area. And the verbal doorway is just our feeling, because we're saying in this experiment that words equal feeling. So whatever we're verbalizing, the feeling. And then check it out for yourself to see if that's true. That's my proposal, that the words are the handle that we can grasp on those feelings, right? And we can open them and we can close them with those words. And so then let's just see if that's true for us. Let's make this thread key. This thread is going to be a big thread.
Okay. So should we wrap it up tonight?
Absolutely. Let's wrap it up. And let's, you know, if we wrap it up, let's just say, like, you know, I'm assuming you're committed to opening and feeling good, you know. And you can say at any time, and we'll open more threads about, you know, this is what makes me feel good. And I'm committed to it. I have an intention for it.
Yes. And by the way, happy 70th birthday. That's.
Thank you much. I'm glad. I'm really, really happy to be in the club. You know, you and me.
Yeah, we're the old guys, I guess now, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, so let's call it a night. And,
okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Really thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see you in the doorway, as they say.
Yeah, right on. Bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye.